the energy that they're experiencing, they're feeling in their body, but it doesn't feel like guilt, it doesn't feel like shame, it doesn't feel like resentment, it doesn't feel like competition or aggression or frustration. It feels like this incredible amount of orderliness that we could only describe as love. But not love like love for your puppy or love for your partner. That's chemical. This is electric. And people tend to feel it in every cell of their body because the nervous system is connected to everything. They get this incredible sensation, and I would call it the most familiar, unfamiliar feeling I've ever had. It's almost like you know that that's you, but you just forgot that that was you. And so people then, when they have that taste of that, they're less likely to be interested in many other things after that, because no drug, no drink, no meal, no sexual experience, no car, no home, no skydiving, whatever it is. Nothing's going to compare to that feeling that they experience, and they just want more of that. And then you think, well, there just can't be any more love than that until the next experience. And I always think there's just more love. And as we evolve, those people, they don't have to try in their lives to forgive. It's not like they have to try any longer. They just have this feeling. And this feeling feels so good that they would never trade this feeling to judge another human being, because they would lose the feeling, and they figure it out. And I want that to be the new normal, because that's the beginning of unconditional love, when it's no longer an effort to try to do it, it's just something that occurs as a side effect. And imagine, this has happened to me, and it's happened to many students that we've interviewed. An inward experience, not an outer experience. An inner experience that has that amplitude of energy that arouses the brain that much that you have this feeling in your chest. They say, many of the people say, oh, I think I'm having a heart orgasm. I don't even know how to describe this. It's like my heart is blooming. And I'm not doing anything. And they have an inner experience, and the emotion from the inner experience is lasting for weeks. Now, that is a new level of understanding, because they're more prone to see possibilities that they've never seen before, because they're no longer emotionally looking at their future or their life through the lens of the past. And at the same time, if experience enriches the brain and they have a profound moment, we don't see things how they are, we see things how we are. So all of a sudden now they have the circuitry in place to begin to perceive a little broader spectrum of reality. They begin to see things through another lens. They begin to observe things that they could never see before, because their brain wasn't wired to perceive it. So now we perceive 1% of reality, and all of a sudden the mystical starts to become more common in their life. I mean, the brain, we see things by pattern recognition. If we don't have the pattern in place, we'll walk right past it. So now there's patterns in place that are more abstract. There are patterns in place that are more mystical. There are patterns in place that are attuned to greater frequencies. And all of a sudden, the mystical starts becoming more common in the person's life. And if they've run into the divine, that energy, and their brain is beginning to connect to it and experiencing it, and then they have that mystical moment, they just may see the divine in every human being, because their brain is now wired for it. And if they're feeling more whole, then there's less separation between two people, and you would never do anything to another person that you wouldn't do to yourself, because you're feeling more oneness and wholeness. And I think that's how we begin to change the species, at least speaking from my present state of ignorance. People stop relying on their outer world, and they start trusting their inner world. If you're relying on your outer world to control how you think and feel, and you say, I saw my ex-husband or my ex-wife, or I saw my boss, or I saw my bank account, and now I'm just depressed. Well, what you're really saying is some outer experience is controlling your thoughts and feelings, which makes you a victim. When you start changing your thinking and feeling, and you start seeing effects in your life, now you're less likely to believe that you're the victim of your life, and you start believing more that you're the creator of your life. And some valve, some conditioning is removed. And that's not something we do in one swallow. That's not something we do in one bite. It takes constant practice to be the scientist in your life, to measure the effects of you at cause. Not just doing a meditation and getting up and going back to work and judging everybody. You've just disconnected from the energy of your future and you're back to the energy of your past. I want people to be able to maintain those states independent of the conditions in their environment. And if they're able to maintain those states and keep their energy, stay connected to that energy for the entire day, something unusual is going to happen in their life. It's the law. There'll be some synchronicity, some coincidence, some opportunity, some serendipity. That, you know, in the beginning you're looking around going, ah, but nobody else is you, so they don't really see it. But you see, something's happening here. I'm getting feedback from my life. And the moment you get feedback, you start paying attention to what you're doing and you do it again. And I think that's how we begin to become more of a creator of our life and less of a victim of our lives. After looking at all those brain scans after all these years, I honestly believe we're at our absolute best when we get beyond ourselves. That's the work. Getting beyond ourselves, the programs, the emotions, the habituations, our frustrations, our impatience, our analytical mind. That's what stands in the way between us and our really profound power. So then as we begin to take that on, that's like lighting a match in a dark place. And I want people to come up against those states in our workshop. I want them because many times at home they come up against that point and they just quit. They don't believe in themselves. And if you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in possibility. But when you do believe in possibility, you do believe in yourself. And when you do believe in yourself, you do believe in possibility. So when the person comes to the end of their emotional belief, as an example, and they sit there and they go a little further, now the will is getting greater than the program.
Right.
Now the body is no longer the mind, and there'll be a liberation of energy. That's a victory. Every time they start getting emotional and they settle their body back down in a meditation, that's a victory. They're mastering the moment. Every time they want to get up and do something because they think they're a busy person and there's not enough time, and they settle their body back down into the present moment, that's a victory. Every time they're putting their attention on some known future event and they become aware that they've lost the present moment, and they return back to the present moment, and they take their attention off the known, they're making room for the unknown in their life. But if they don't know what they're doing, then it just becomes a battle against the self. So as we develop the understanding, we develop the practicum, and they understand what they're doing, then it's like working out. I can do one more repetition, I can run a little further, I can stretch a little bit more, because they understand that as they stretch a little bit further, that's how plasticity works. You got to stretch a little bit further outside the box. And when people start latching on to some degree of change, they may have a period of quiescence for 2 weeks, like nothing's really happening. And they're about ready to give up, and then they just go, I'm just going to keep going. The experiment is for 3 weeks. All of a sudden, boom, they go a little further, their heart opens, they lay down after their meditation, they have a profound moment. They're less likely when they're driving to work to think about all the people that they dislike. After a moment like that, they're just overjoyed. They're no longer the same person to some measure, to some degree. And I think as they change their personality, your personality creates your personal reality. You start seeing changes in your personal reality. We become more passionate about doing it, and we understand that we're more conscious. And I think about this a lot too. We work so hard in the process of overcoming ourselves to overcome our ego. You start figuring it out. Like, why would you build it up the same day if you know you're going to have to face off with it tomorrow, right? And that's me. That's what I think. I think, God, I just worked for the last hour and a half, just get beyond myself. Why would I want to do the same thing or be the same person after I just overcame? So you start figuring it out. So now you're more conscious in your life and less likely to go unconscious. Now, what's the relevance of that? If you're more conscious in your life, well, the problems that we've created in our life were created from some level of consciousness or unconsciousness. So then in order to resolve the problems in your life, you got to go to a greater level of consciousness. Just becoming conscious of the way you think, the way you act, and the way you feel. You're at a greater level of awareness. You're at a greater energy. You may not be that other person yet, but now you know. And you're less likely to let that thought slip by your awareness unchecked during the day because you faced off with it for the last 2 hours. Now, some people would say, well, that's going to take too long. Well, really, tell me the alternative. I mean, because if you haven't taken care of that circuit, it's going to be there tomorrow. If you haven't taken care of your emotional reactions to the people in your life, that disease is going to come back, or that health problem, or that pain, or that imbalance is going to come back because you're back in the past. So when people start to figure this out, they're just saying, man, it was that emotion that signaled the gene. Now that I understand that, okay, now I just got to be aware of what those feelings feel like in my body. What does it feel like? And they start figuring it out, and they start saying, ooh, I start feeling it's coming up. And they don't just let it turn in like they surrender to fear. They'll take a moment, they'll settle down and regulate their body, and they'll surrender to love. And that's the alternative. And when they do that enough times, everybody starts noticing they're more loving in their life, and they like the way they feel. And they go, well, I'd rather have this than that. So trading guilt or fear for love and freedom is a challenge, because people don't believe that they can get there because they're so anchored. But you push enough people, and it starts happening, and people start breaking through. It becomes very infectious. I watch it all the time.